Your job is to follow the money. Has Treasury been as helpful as you would have wanted in this? And specifically, you've had a difference of opinion with Treasury over the ability to track the money. Where are you now with that?
Well, we're not terribly much further than we were on December 23rd, last year, when I first made the recommendation that Treasury require TARP recipients to report on how they're using the TARP funds.
Why does Treasury resist?
You know, previous explanations that they've given is they've cited the inherent fungibility of money. They've cited that it's impractical or meaningless to do so. We've always disagreed with that vigorously, and I think we demonstrated through our report that it certainly can be done. I will tell you what my biggest surprise was, and it's really on the audit side. When we announced our audit that we're going to send a letter to the 364 financial institutions, Treasury went out of their way to make it very public that they thought that this was going to be a tremendous waste of time, that money was fungible, that it was a pointless exercise. They said this in the public, and I heard that they said it in private. And I was really expecting that when we got our audit responses, that I was going to get 364 responses that said, this is a dumb question, money is fungible, it all goes into our capital and we don't keep track of it. And we got a couple of those to be sure. But what I was surprised by was the effort and the diligence that many institutions did to answer the question. Now, in part, that's because we made them sign a certification under criminal penalty that they were telling us the truth, and we also made them to cite and retain any records they had, such as emails or budgets on how they were planning to use the TARP funding. But I was surprised, nonetheless, that having gotten that signal, I think, of perhaps what the response should be, that the financial institutions did do the right thing. I think a little bit more than half of our criminal investigations have been triggered or associated with hotlines.
What does that tell you, that people are calling so much and reading the paper and tracking things back to you? What does that tell you about the level of public concern still and anger about what happened last year?
I think, to me, the number that absolutely blew me away is we recently checked and we've had 26 million hits to our website. And for a government website where you can't get anything from our website other than information and knowledge. And I think that really touches on how interested and how much American people really do care about this program. And they should. They're the investors. I always say that, but it really is true. They're involuntary investors for the most part, but they're the ones who invested in these institutions. They're the ones who really own the GM stock, the Citi stock, the preferred shares in all these financial institutions, and they do care.
Well, is it working?
It really depends on your perspective. We were told by Treasury that the point was to increase lending, was to get these banks lending again. Today we hear that the purpose of the TARP was to prevent systemic collapse. If the goal that is now being stated now is applied, boy, we did avoid, or at least it certainly appears that we've avoided a total systemic collapse. The TARP, along with other programs that were announced at that time, seems to have accomplished that goal. If the goal was to increase lending, well, we haven't increased lending. TARP funds are being used by these banks, as they themselves report, acquire other financial institutions. They sit on it as a capital cushion in case they have future losses. They buy securities with them. They pay off lines of credit.
How long are you going to be in business? Does sunset of TARP mean sunset for you?
We're going to be around for much longer than the sunset. You know, the PPIP program, for example, has the private public investment program where government taxpayer TARP equity is going to be matched up with private equity. Those agreements have an 8 to 10 year time span. So that, for example, we would exist as an office for 8 to 10 years on that program alone.
Are we safe?
I can't tell you if we're safe or not. I don't know the answer to that question. I think if you look and see what has happened since then, banks that were too big to fail are bigger than ever. They've become consolidated. There's been, with government encouragement, some of the largest banks became larger and are more interconnected than ever. You hear about moral hazard. The heads I win, tails the taxpayers pay for it. We certainly have not moved away from that. In fact, I think that we've made it very clear. When the TARP was announced, the whole purpose was a statement that we're not going to let our large financial institutions fail. And with that, I think we may be in a far more dangerous place today than we were a year ago.